Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Come in, say hi. If you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and we do this live show here. What's my good cheer? Monday to Friday is one of two live shows that I have here on YouTube, and very grateful to have my brand, to have my YouTube. It so easily could have been a different story, right? But to each one of us in our choices, right? In the things that we desire, the things that we want in our lives, we get to make that choice whether or not, right, we're going to get those things or not. Nobody's just going to hand them to us, right? And that is the truth. So for the past, oh my goodness, I'd have to say 38 weeks, because we've got our third word this week for a second time. We've gotten this word forgiveness. It has, right? It has set me on a doozy just as much as it did the first time. We're in it again for a second time, and I'm trying to really take an honest look and take a look at what I'm bringing to the table in a lesson, not just for myself, but I think a lesson for everybody. We live in crazy town world right now. But if you look back through the ages, we've always lived in crazy town world, right? Take a look at it. You could pick it any time in history and find those, let's call them distractions, because that's what they are, right? So we just don't pay attention to what's really happening in the world because we're so preoccupied about what's going on over here, you know. And to give credit where credit is due, we are all drawn to some aspects to pay attention to it, right? I think each one of us has a special pair of eyes and a special feel for what's going on in the world. And I think lots of times that we are sometimes drawn into these stories so that we can have that perspective, that through your set of eyes, that we can have maybe a better idea of what's going on in the world, right? I stick my nose out of some topics because, I don't have maybe a right to have a say, right? It's kind of like some of those politicians who just pop into the scene just to say something negative about their opponents, right? And then they draw back into their holes unless, right, there's a little bit of meat thrown out into the audience and wow, I'll jump in the hero and I'll take this side. And, again, just pop up when you don't have something nice to say about somebody else. This week we got this word forgiveness for the third time, and today I have been in contemplation, but at the same time recognizing in those lessons that come across my path that I need to get things done. Right? I've had a video in the works, and it's editing is not my forte. It's not my passion, but what my passion is lies within the things that I need to get done, like editing video, right? And until I can get myself in that position where, right, somebody else could do the job for me, I have to do it. So I got up this morning and I set a plan. Okay, we're going to get to this point, and then you can take a rest for an hour, right? I didn't go any further than that because I didn't know how painful it was going to be, right? All I said is,
okay, we're going to do the Kodaks and we're going to get it on the laptop. We're going to get it all in sequencing, and we're going to get rid of the stuff that we don't need, and we're going to, right? And I went into it and I went to work, and things so far went click, click, click for me, right? I got all my video onto the plate in the sequencing that I wanted. And then I realized it's all there, right? Exactly the way I want to lay it out for a full half an hour. Now, it didn't have transition, it didn't have my fonts and my graphics in there, right? The music, I still have to go into YouTube and I have to pick some entering music to flow into the video, right? But that's the polishing. That's the sprinkles. That's the gravy. I have to say to myself, did I get it done? Right? Done is better than perfect from what I've been taught, right? But I've got a few lessons under my belt. So we'll go back into it tomorrow because I did get to that point where I got it all onto my computer, right? I took my break that I needed. I don't like editing. And then I came back with a fresh pair of eyes and I plowed through, right? The shortenings of the clips and, right, deciding what I needed and what I didn't need. Try to shorten it a little bit. Not much. I tried. Not too hard. I could have. I just, right? I created all that film and I really, right? I'll throw it in there, and if I put somebody to sleep, I put somebody to sleep, right? But I did it and I was kind of happy with myself. Now, the other chore that I wanted to get done on this set of the days off was to get those spring clothes switched over, right? Didn't get it done, right? I started only to the point where I could say that I started. I grabbed a garbage bag and I threw a couple of items that I didn't want anymore into it, get it ready for donation. So I said, oh, I got it started. But truly, I didn't have any intent of even doing it. When I had that sprint of moment with the garbage bag, right? I was getting ready to crawl into bed. Like I wasn't going to start dumping Rubbermaid containers out onto the bed and sorting things out at midnight, right? But in my mind, in that little bit of guilt and shame that came to the surface, that I didn't get that promise to myself, that goal that I had set out for myself done. Uh yeah, I kind of felt bad, and just before I'm going to bed, I had this idea, well, at least I can get it started just so I could say that I worked on it. But in truth, I didn't work on it. I was just covering my butt so I could keep my word technically, right? without really without really doing it. Okay, you guys, so let's get back into this word that we got this week. We got this word forgiveness, right? And I went into it a little bit in the content that was coming across my path today. Google is good at. Google knows I'm on the topic and, right, offered up a couple of lessons for me to take in. And I did take them in. And this content has been coming across my path a few times. And I never picked up on it because it wasn't kind of positive, right? The lesson was why it is not necessary to forgive. Why, right? We shouldn't always forgive. And there were a couple of thought leaders out there who particularly had something to say about it, and I understand these are painful experiences that mold us into the characters that we are. that make it so that we have these walls and these tendencies and these triggers in us that make it hard for us to want to forgive, right? You know, we all have pains, we all have heartbreaks, we all have betrayals, we all have rejections, and maybe not all of them, but at least one of them to some extent. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here listening to this content, right? We are trying to make some movement in our lives and trying to find some happiness for ourselves, right? And not just happiness for ourselves, but because we are those caregivers, it's through our experience and that the evidence shines through that maybe, other people that have had those difficulties in their life might not have to go through them, right? I am optimistic. I am hopeful. I follow some great minds out there, and I've chosen to make a little bit of movement by those lessons that have been, right, expressed to me and in my choices, right? Sounded like a good plan. And in that evidence, I would like to be that evidence that it can be done, right? That we can make that movement, that we can, even though we are full of limitations, right? That we are capable of giving ourselves a little bit of boot in our butt. And even if we're just going to cover our butts and grab a garbage bag and throw a couple of vests, we're keeping to our words to the best of our ability, right? Because I see at least that. I felt guilty. I felt the shame that I had started on that spring switcheroo in my closet. Was it a big deal? No, but it's something I did intend to get to, and because I was able to mix the carrots in with the mashed potatoes and other aspects of my days off, meaning finding things for me to involve myself in that were more enjoyable than cleaning the closet, right? It just can't seem like I was giving myself the out in that, right? And that's okay. It was in my intent. And, I am proud of the fact that, right, we got on that video editing, right? It was like pulling teeth. But then again, it wasn't. It was just in getting started. And we'll be back at it tomorrow morning. And who knows, maybe by the time I leave for work, we've got a video to put up. How good it is, I have no idea. But that's not the idea in it, right? It's being that evidence that I'm keeping my word, that I'm taking the people who follow my content into consideration, right? Knowing that they're waiting for a video too, right? And not necessarily they're expecting it to be masterful, right? Academy Award quality, but it's in spending that time with with me, right? In those lessons that I'm constantly yapping about that, right? That you actually get to see a little bit of that movement that I'm trying to make, that I am making, that I am that I am making. And even though it doesn't look exactly as what I hoped or what I planned, sometimes it turns out even better. Okay, we're going to draw it back to the center on the topic of forgiveness. Like I said, today I listened to a little bit of content and I watched a couple of posts, and it was presented by people. I follow their content. One of them is an expert on narcissism, and I come from that dynamic family. And this isn't crucify anything because I love my narcissists, right? They are my family, and I look at them with their problems like they look at me with my problems. And in that understanding that it takes all kinds to make the world, it's pretty easy for me to love my family. Warts and fangs. Right? And all. And in that time that, right, I'm 62 years old. I've learned how to dance around those aspects of their personalities uh, quite comfortably in all truth, right? I wouldn't be here right now, right? If I was allowing myself to be held back from what I really would like to do, what I feel compelled to do, and what I will do, right? Despite, right? Family or not. This is this is my story to tell. So when I talk about, forgiveness, I listened to these ideas about, you don't have to forgive. These people did terrible, terrible things to you. These, right? Sometimes these souls are broken and in their own given up or in their own understanding that it's only an outfit, right? That we will treat ourselves like we're just an outfit, that we don't have any significance, or, right, we don't get to have a say. We just get to go along with, right, whatever. I think in this idea of forgiveness, it offers up an opportunity to practice our craft, that craft that we're moving towards in the creation of the best human being we possibly can be. And if we are the examples of that, if we're the examples of that, we don't have any choice but to forgive, because that forgiveness is a kindness. And in the end, that isn't that what we're all about, in showing that evidence that, right, that we can be kind, right? That it takes all kinds to make the world, but not all kinds are, right, eye to eye. Very rarely are we eye to eye. And in the kindnesses, it gives us an opportunity to sit across the table from somebody we don't care for, or we're warring with, right? Or on the norm, we can't get a word in inchwise, and that person's sitting right there and they're giving you 5 minutes, right? That kindness in that offering of forgiveness, even if it's undeserving, right? And even though it's not recognized, and if you come from a family like I come from, my parents never said sorry. I never, there were lots of times that sorry was due, right? But sorry was never forthcoming, not once in the lifespan that I spent with my parents on either side. I found it to be very peculiar. I didn't wake up to any of these ideas until well into my 50s, but even not woke to these ideas, I remember recognizing how strange it was that they never said sorry, right? I could chalk my mother up because I just thought my mother was not a kind person, right? So So it was easy for me to understand why she would never apologize, because she was always right, right? But in my father, who was so kind, right? He was so loving and sweet and right, that he never found, well, he did find ways to say sorry, but he never said the words, I'm sorry. His idea of saying sorry was sending us off for pop and potato chips, or bringing home Kentucky Fried Chicken when he got off work, right? These kind of things. His actions were the way that he expressed that he was feeling bad, or he was sorry for what he did, or what he said, and those were very, very rare. But when they did happen, they were doozy, and they were worthy of a I'm sorry. And that forgiveness would have been readily given out. Like in a second. In a second it was done. It was done anyway, even without, right? That asking or that apology, right? It was just given anyway. That was the kindness, right? That made it possible. The potato chips and the pop and the comic books were forthcoming, right? Because I let things slide, right? I constantly let things slide. And for lots of people, they would say that's not a good thing, right? And I agree, that's not a good thing. As an adult, I learned not to turn the other cheek, right? I'm much better at how I give the lessons and not turn the other cheek. Because before it would just be raw. What did you say? What? It used to be like that, right? But a few lessons under the belt, you get to realize turning the other cheek means, is there something wrong today, or would you like to talk to me about something, right? Is there something I can do? Do you want me to call somebody, right? And it's in our choices, and that's what I'll say on that. It's in our choices to be that person, to be kind anyway. And my lessons are a little bit different now than how I would have expressed them as a young adult, and totally different, because if I didn't have something nice to say, I was taught not to say anything at all as a child. So, it is in our upbringing, it is in those dynamic upbringings that we have, that we learn our lessons. And I never learned the lesson of I'm sorry, but I did, because I spent my whole life stumbling over myself, apologizing for things that possibly I should never have apologized for, right? But always feeling like it was not going to be comfortable if I didn't apologize, if I didn't smooth out that situation, if I didn't calm somebody down. And these are the things that we learn in our hypervigilance, and it's right, all surrounded and dictated by our need to feel safe, right? But this is the thing about forgiveness, you know, this opportunity that I had to offer up some forgiveness with my mother when she was sick and she was passing away, and I was able to really have, and it wasn't just when she was passing away. I also had that opportunity when my husband was in the military, and he was sent on tour to Croatia. And when he was sent to tour, he sent me to go live with my mother as an adult for 6 months it was the most painful 6 months of my entire life. But I made use out of that. And I asked some difficult questions as an adult that possibly I was afraid to ask her when I was a child. And I was able to get some answers in that, right? And when my mother passed away, and we offered each other that little bit of forgiveness, because it was a little bit, because it's deep rooted, right? Where people are talking, right? No need to forgive. That pain is very, very rooted, but that pain is going to trip us up in our lives. We're going to be constantly triggered. We're going to be constantly reminded in our lives unless we resolve that. Unless we resolve that pain. It's what we do here. We do that kind of work. We have to, because I'm not carrying that stuff. I just woke up to these ideas at 57 years old. I got a lot of work to do, right? I'm not carrying this stuff until I'm 80, till I'm 100, until I'm 114, which is the I hit targets. I'm hitting targets, but I also know it's how I take care of myself, right? That contributes to that. I could say 114 and manifest it right out the top of my head. But unless those other parts of me and me are teaming up in that, well, we're going to fall a little bit short. And I suspect we probably already have fallen a little bit short on that. But maybe with a little bit of pedaling, not as short as was expected to be. Forgiveness, right, offers up that opportunity for kindness, right? It's a kindness that you're doing when you offer up forgiveness. It's a kindness to yourself because you're putting, right? You get an opportunity to put it to bed, to say, this is it, right? We've talked about it, right? We've resolved it to the best of our ability. I'm moving past this. You can move past this too. We've cleared the air, right? You can go now, right? We have that opportunity to put that to bed. But at the same time, you have that opportunity to help somebody else put that to bed, right? We offered up a little bit of forgiveness for each other. We had to. We didn't rub each other. We didn't rub each other well. And my sisters loved my mother. My mother, right? I had my role in that family. And there were favoritisms, but she was herself in those favoritisms. So they got a big dose of zero affection, right? And that coldness and that devouring, they got a good taste of it too. It may have looked differently, right? But it was there, and yet they loved her more than anything, right? So in that forgiveness, right? Let the reward. That forgiveness was a kindness also, because I was able to put it to bed, right? I was able to move past that just with offering that little bit of forgiveness, that little bit of kindness, right? My sisters felt differently about my mother. If I hadn't offered up that little bit of forgiveness, if I hadn't had that conversation with my mother when my husband went to creation, I had to go live with her, and we were able to clear the air on these things. When she passed away, because of my sister's love for my mother, I would have second guessed myself. I would have possibly thought myself as the bad daughter rather than the good daughter that I know that I was, right? We don't always make the connections like we would like to, but never deny your own, because in the end, that's all you've got, right? And and in that forgiveness, I was able to resolve some things for myself, right? So that I don't have to question that relationship that I had with my mother. I know what's true for myself, and I got the evidence through those questions and those conversations that, right, me and my mother both participated in because she, right, to her best ability, she answered those questions. And in the recognition that was the best that she could do, I, right, I got it. And it made it easier for me to forgive. Right? It made it easier for me to forgive. So I don't have to hold those bad memories. I don't have to second guess that that situation could have been different, that I might have been wrong in the way that I'm thinking, that maybe I was the bad person in that situation when in the end, right, there were just, right, I don't know, misgivings and misunderstandings and looking for a way not to deal with our own pain, right? Not to hold on to our own pain and wanting others to do that for us. And I get it, right? So when they say today, when I was delving into those lessons from people, that's a lot of pain. They're holding on to their pain. They didn't get an opportunity to forgive. It doesn't mean they don't have, that person doesn't have to be there, right? That person could be gone for 30 years, right? And you could still forgive them. That's that fresh slate, right? For yourself. And for those of you who might have been affected, right, by that idea that, oh my goodness, right, forgive that, not a chance. But if you look at it as a kindness, and it's easy for me too, because I have these ideas that we come back with these same characters, right? Not the same characters, different characters, but same, right? With parts of us still there. And those are our lessons, lifetime after lifetime, until we get them right, until everybody in that crew gets through, right? And if we're not in the midst of it, if we're standing off to the sidelines, if we're not the evidence for somebody to see, how's anybody going to learn, right? How anybody is going to learn, right? We have to be those examples, and we have to offer up that little bit of kindness, because that little bit of kindness might be somebody else's movement, right? And if you don't offer up that forgiveness, that could be an obstacle, right? For somebody you might love, but drives you absolutely bonkos, right? Causes you a lot of pain, fear, grief, rejection, mental anxiety, emotional anxiety, right? But if you offer up that forgiveness is a kindness, and maybe you can put something on the shelf, and so that, right, next time around might be a little bit better, right? Not so painful, maybe, right? Maybe not getting to best friend stage, right? Not to mother of the year stage or father of the year stage, but maybe a little bit better, because we do baby steps here, right? And our evolution dictates that we're creating the best human being we possibly can, right? It's not dictating we're creating the best human being right this second, right? Right? We're never going to be perfect. Not in this lifetime, anyway. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. and we'll see you tomorrow.